And we're in the company of our politics editor, Mark Perlman. Mark, before we turn to domestic politics, again, can you remind our viewers about how far does the French president's remit extend when it comes to defense policy?
Very far. I mean, when it comes to diplomacy and defense, he is the commander-in-chief here in France. So really, this is his prerogative, and obviously this is something that Emmanuel Macron already indicated he would defend, that it would be his turf, whoever the prime minister was. When the assumption was that it would be a national rally prime minister, and the historical leader of the party, Marine Le Pen, challenged him, saying, head of the army is only an honorary title. Emmanuel Macron's lieutenants immediately lashed back, saying, no, we're talking about serious things there. The president is the one who can push the nuclear button. He is the one who commands the army. He is the one who decides what we should do with Ukraine and other places. And so the fact that there is now probably a much weaker, quote-unquote, prime minister going to emerge in the coming days or weeks, this is the question we'll talk about very soon, makes Emmanuel Macron more powerful, because if you had a powerful prime minister, he might have challenged him, but now clearly the president will remain the sole decision maker when it comes to defense and foreign affairs.
Wherein does the power lie? France's left feeling the heat. The new Popular Front alliance finished tops last Sunday in the snap legislative elections in terms of number of seats for that coalition, but nowhere near the magic number of 289 seats in the next French parliament. Therefore, with the French president putting out that letter before he went to the summit in Washington, stating that he would take his time before deciding on a prime minister, you now have the conservatives weighing in, the president of the Senate, also a powerful figure institutionally, stating that he doesn't want Macron to make a decision till September. Emerald Maxwell has more.
Just before touching down in Washington for the NATO summit, Emmanuel Macron said in a letter to the French people that no one won the legislative elections. But that view has angered the leftist alliance, the New Popular Front. It received the biggest vote share but fell short of an overall majority.
This letter breaks with the democratic institutions of our republic that the president is supposed to protect. So I'm very worried today about the president's power play. It must be condemned.
The ire of France Unbowed also stems from Macron's call for a government of Republican forces to come together. This designation is understood to exclude them, as well as the far right. For the Socialist Party, Macron is trying to sow divisions in their alliance.
I made the choice to unite the left. I made that choice when I became leader of the Socialist Party, and I will not budge from it. Why? Because I know that those who seek to divide the left actually want to ensure the left will never govern.
But for the Green Party, their own alliance is also partially to blame, as they've yet to put forth the names of a candidate for prime minister and for other top jobs.
I think we are taking too long. Now is the time to come up with the names. We're losing ground here, and we're creating concern that we aren't capable of coming up with a team and a government, so we are partially responsible.
Leaders on the right are also weighing in. The conservative head of the Senate gave a categorical no to the idea of a left prime minister.
If the president of the republic makes that choice, I will request the motion of no confidence.
While it may have been an attempt to appease France's political turmoil and for a coalition to be formed, Emmanuel Macron's letter has only stoked tensions in the ongoing negotiations.
So, Mark Perlman, let's take in what we just heard there. The leader of the Socialists saying he's not going to break with the hard left, and the president of the Senate, who's from the Conservative Party, so to the right of Emmanuel Macron, saying, if you name a prime minister from the left, we're bringing down the government immediately.
Well, catch-22. I mean, that's the problem. We are in a situation where no one has a majority and no one is ready to concede that it doesn't have one. So we're hearing the left saying, we won. We get to have a candidate for the prime minister. Emmanuel Macron and his camp telling them, no one won. The president wrote it in his open letter. No one won. So we have to see who can get a majority. i.e., we can get one because we're in the middle of all this, the three blocs, the left, the far right, and the Macron camp. And so there are discussions, discussions on the left, but also discussions between the Macron camp and the handful of conservative MPs to try to see if they can come up with a prime minister and a majority.
But we're already hearing, particularly from, and we heard it in that report from the hard left, but it's also coming from the far right, this sort of where's my vote questions, if the people who were massively rejected at the polls then make up the next government.
Well, yes, but no one really won outright at the polls. So everyone can say, okay, we didn't really win. On the left, they're saying we have the most seats, so it makes sense that we get a shot. The problem is, as we just heard one of their MPs admit, we're taking way too much time to come up with a candidate. I mean, we were told by one prominent member of France Unbowed, Manon Aubry, who headed their slate at the European election, it's a matter of hours. So, yes, but the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking because if not, Emmanuel Macron would be indeed in a position to say, well, they cannot come up with a candidate for prime minister, so let's ask someone else. Let's ask an alternative majority, my majority that I'm trying to build with maybe people on the center left, maybe people on the right, because no one has the numbers right now in parliament, so everything is open.
In that interview of the president of the Senate, again, a powerful figure, and institutionally he's the number two, the second most powerful person, because if something happens to the president, it's the president of the Senate who takes over. He also stated that, there's a first test coming up next week, which is Parliament sits, opening session. They'll pick, obviously, the Speaker, but also the heads of all the different powerful commissions. And he says the national rally of Marine Le Pen has its right to have important posts.
Right, yeah, because everything is up for grabs. In a situation where you have three blocks, there's no reason why one block would be able to get all the positions, and there's no reason why there should be the alliance that we saw in the second round, meaning the de facto alliance between the Macron camp and the leftist coalition to prevent the national rally from winning this election. We already saw it in 2022, where the National Rally had much less MPs. They were nevertheless able to get the vice presidency, one of the vice presidency of the National Assembly, some positions. The argument for Gérard Larcher is like, the 10 million people who voted for the National Rally are already very angry that in their eyes, the election was stolen by this unholy alliance between Macron and the left. Those we just discussed are fighting who's going to get prime minister. So his argument is, if they don't get any piece of the cake in the National Assembly, they'll be in a position to say, the system is against us. And for the next election, they have the argument saying, we really need to win this outright. We really need to win the presidency. And they'll have their argument, which they've used for years, saying the system doesn't want us to win. We have really to win the next presidential election, and they're not allowing to have our share of power. So this is a ready-made argument, and so this is why we find ourselves in this position.
For more, let's cross now to Noemie Bisserbe, who covers French politics for the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Thanks for having me.
So the French know, right? We have this two-round system. First round, you pick a candidate. The second round, you eliminate. So is there this sentiment of a steal?
I mean, this system has been in place for a while. The point of the system is to keep the extremes out of power. So that's worked pretty well to that extent. I think that the fact that candidates can drop out and so pool their voters together does create frustration among far-right voters and gives them an argument that, well, see, again, the system is against us, and we need to fight this, and it's just it just feeds into their narrative.
Feeds into their narrative, and at the same time, you have the president of the Senate, who's a conservative, saying, wait till September, President Macron, before picking a prime minister. Is that music to the president's ear? Is he winning his bet, which is, I'll call a snap election and prove that I'm the only game in town?
No, I mean, I don't think that Macron, we can say that Macron's gamble has paid off. I mean, if you look at the National Assembly today, clearly his party is in a weaker position than it was a few months ago. Not only he no longer has a majority, but he's not even the biggest party in the National Assembly. His party has never been more divided. I think that he's in a very difficult spot, and he's going to try to buy time. And with the Olympics coming up, there is also a sense that maybe we need some kind of stability. But it's going to be a very difficult way forward for him, and he will soon come under pressure to resign. So I don't think we can say his gamble is paying off. No.
How much time does the left have? We were talking with Mark Perlman a short while ago. How much time does it have to come up with the name of a lead candidate?
I mean, they've said that they would give a candidate by the end of the week, but I think that the bigger question is whether Macron will accept to name that PM, because from what he said in his letter to regional media yesterday, I don't think he intends to. So, regardless of whether they're able to come up with a name, I don't think that Macron is willing to pick that candidate as his prime minister. He'll choose somebody else.
Noemie, you talked about pressure for Macron to resign. You really think the president would leave office before the end of his term in 2027?
I mean, he has said that he would stay, that he would not resign before 2027. But if he is not able to form a new government, if we have again a new legislative election in a year, he at some point that's going to be a real question for him. I think that it's a real possibility. Yes.
You concur, Mark Perlman?
I'm not so sure, given the situation right now. If there's an institutional deadlock, it's true that we could face that situation, but it's hard to imagine. If there's no real majority and you have, let's say, a technocratic government, and the president handing in his resignation, just imagine you have a headless country. I mean, you're without a president, and don't forget, even if he resigns, you cannot call a snap election before 1 year. So you would have a resigning president, hung parliament. I mean, I have a hard time imagining this. He would have been under much more pressure if the National Rally had won handily, like all the polls predicted, this election, because the prime minister would have pushed him. We could have expected, on the other hand, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the leader of the hard left, also pushing, maybe using street mobilization to try to push him out of the Élysée Palace. But if there is such a situation where you will have a weak government, it's not because you have a weak government and a weak president that the president will be forced to resign. So I think that for now, Emmanuel Macron is probably going to stay the course, but he's proven me and others wrong before.
One thing our panel can agree on is there is plenty of drama still to come. Noemie Bisserbe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark Perlman. Stay with us. There's much more to come, more news, plus the day's business. And in sports, third win on this tour for Binam Girmay, the Eritrean sprinter, who's the first Black African to win stages on the Tour de France.